Welcome back to Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast, a podcast dedicated to everything Moon Knight for the weekly Moon Knight goodness. I'm one of your hosts, Connor.
And I'm your other host, Ray, and this week we will be looking at our classic and modern runs again. A bit of a short one with our classic run, which will see Defenders number 51, Round with the Ringer, as well as we're finishing off the Resurrection War arc with part 4, with issue 4. Alongside that, we've got news as usual, so yep, sit back, relax, and get your Khonshu on.
Yes, welcome back. We've got some lovely issues to cover. We basically say goodbye to two series we've been following for a whopping 4 issues, so very touching goodbyes this episode, and we've got a nice bit of news to cover. But starting us off, as always, Ray, how are you?
Yeah, very well, Connor. Very well. We the Aussie loonies will be fortunate enough to have had a 3-day weekend this weekend as we celebrate Australia Day on the Friday. So yeah, it's been just 3 days of chillaxing, catching up on comics. A bit of spring cleaning here and there, but yeah, generally quite chilled. How about yourself, Connor?
Yep, likewise, just been catching up on that pull list. I've been like a month behind on something, so I'm just pumping out just issues upon issues. Stack slowly decreasing, but I'm still probably only like halfway through it, so that shows where I've been at with my comics. But yeah, no, it's been great all round. Give a shout, as we always do, to like one of the top picks of the last week coming, that Ewing sort of had a big finale to his Inhuman saga with Inhuman's Judgment Day, which was as touching as it was beautiful in both art and story wise, and
yeah,
I think this is definitely one of my favourite eras for the Inhumans ever since Marvel Now 2 we're in currently for the Marvel phase, now Marvel Legacy. But yeah, it's just been fantastic, and it was just a great issue to not quite put an end, but you know, wrap some things up for this incredible part of Inhuman history.
Okay, so it ties things up rather well. I've actually got the issue myself on digital, but I didn't realise, Connor. So is it number 1, I guess, is it like a one-shot? And number 2, is it meant to wrap up the Royals? Is that the whole idea?
Yeah, it's basically like Royals 13 almost, and the fact that, you know, that's the end of sort of both series in this one-shot. Okay,
so it is a one-shot. Oh, okay, well, cool. Oh, I'm looking forward to reading it. I thought it was a new Inhumans series, actually. I thought it was like, cause isn't it, it's tagged as number 1, right? So I could get that wrong as well. I don't know. Oh, anyway, it was, that's something to look forward to. What else? Hang on, let me have a look. What else came out? I read a couple of really good comics this week as well, Connor. Oh, that's right. I was catching up on Avengers No Surrender. Oh,
yes.
Yeah, we spoke about that last episode. I've caught up now up to part 3. Oh, look, I'm really enjoying it as well. It's a bit of mindless fun, but it is entertaining, I must say.
Yeah, I very much mean to pick it up. It seems like just something fun to have throughout the weeks, knowing it's weekly comics can be hefty, but sometimes it makes some things less worth the wait. So yeah, I look forward to picking that up.
Yeah. One of the disappointments, I will have to say, actually, I mentioned this to Nick from King's Comics. I had a bit of a chat with him in the store. I picked up, finally, the last issue of James Stokoe's Dead Orbit came out in Aliens. I'm not sure if you've been collecting that, Connor, but it's been such a long time between Part 3 and Part 4. And Part 4 came out just last week, I believe, or the week before. But it was a decent enough issue. It was mainly action, like hardly any dialogue. But just the mere fact that I really had already forgotten what had happened, in Part 3. I think it really lost its momentum by, I don't know what the reason was, but by issue 4 coming out so late. I think it really detracted from it. So that was a bit disappointing. A disappointing end to a really exciting book at the beginning. I remember we were both talking about it because James Stokoe did such great work with with Moon Knight in space during the Lemire run. It was just a bit of a disappointment with his Aliens run, but there you go.
Yeah, I suffered the same thing with Four Kids Walking to the Bank, in a fantastic series,
Yeah.
No one doesn't sing that series' praises, but picking up its singles, I think it was like the 5th issue.
Yeah.
Despite how good a series it was, it took me like, there was like a 2-3 month waiting gap, or even longer than that possibly, and by the time I picked it up, I had to like put it on hold to reread everything before it because it was just like, a finale that almost didn't mean anything to me because it wasn't fresh enough in my head to get like the satisfaction. But definitely pick that one up and trade, and I imagine, Dead Orbit will this be the same, that trade will be out soon enough, and I bet it'll be a nice read. But yeah, it's just, and that's usually never, their fault. These are high quality comics,
for sure.
And high quality comics take time, but there's no denying it's a bummer and puts a hindrance on any series that is unfortunate enough to suffer it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, such as I guess the risk of a serial, a serial publication, and as you say, by all means, it's not their fault. We are lucky with, I guess, the big two at least, Marvel and DC. At least they consistently bring things out. The only thing I can think of recently was Karnak, which kind of lost a bit of its momentum because there were, I think, personal affairs that were happening behind the scenes. So that's well and justified. But the big two generally seem to bring things out consistently, which is good. And I guess that's, if you do look at serial format versus trade format, I guess that is one reason on the trade side to get it. If it reads really well one after the other, then yeah, for sure, that's what you kind of have to read it as. So, but anyway, I mean, those were just a few of the comics, and just reading a lot of old comics as well, Connor. I managed to score 3 trades of Hercules from one of those Facebook sales. So I got them for really cheap, and I can't wait to get into it as well because Hercules is as you know, is probably one of my favourite characters as well, and he features well enough in Avengers No Surrender, so it kind of got me pumped to read more Hercules. Had you bought any old runs, or are you reading any older runs now, Connor?
I'm doing another, I don't know.
Oh, you are
half-yearly reread of Transformers, I suppose. It's taken up a bit of my time. Mm-hmm. Nothing quite, but I suppose I'll include this now because it's technically a news item, while not. But speaking of good cheap sales, that I'll probably pick up something, fairly soon. Amazon's Kindle is having one of those big Marvel sales where you get volumes for like $3. I can get all 3 Lemire and Ellis volumes for like $3 a pop, and I'm pretty sure I want to go back on that. I've been hearing one of the chats both Ray and I are in has been pretty Namor centric for a bit. That's got me hankering to go back. Check out a character I've never checked up. Ecstatic actually is something I want to go back. The Peter Milligan run from the early 2000s, but yeah.
Okay. Well, I've got to recommend. It was probably on that chat that you were mentioning, Connor. One of the chat members, Darcy, and I had mentioned, and I'm rereading it now at the moment. It's Namor, the 2003 run, and it's on Marvel Unlimited as well. If you want to read it there, which is what I'm doing, but it's a really cool, tight 12-issue run. Broken up into 2 arcs, and it's about Namor in his earlier years, when he's kind of like a teenager, and he's still the prince, and his grandfather's the king. Really good issue, really good series. So highly recommend that for you, Connor, as well.
Awesome. All right.
But yeah, that was the first bit of news, eh? So there is a huge Kindle sale going on at the moment, and I had to check today as well, and they are dirt cheap, some of the things. Like, I was, funnily enough, looking at a lot of Namor Submariner, like Masterworks, those kind of volumes. But yeah, really cheap, up to like 80% off. So Looney's out there, anyone that's keen, go check out the Kindle store. And just a reminder as well, like if you are part of Comixology, Kindle works easy, like in Comixology as well. It actually imports all your Kindle lists as well, so you can technically not only just buy your stuff from Comixology, it's all part of the same thing under Amazon. You can go to the Kindle store, and that should work fine on your tablet as well. Yep. What have we got? We've got number 2 here, Connor. There's a little article here on musicians.
Yes, actually, just I found something here from, as I learnt as I was finishing up the article, from Australia's own Chris Neal, who's a particularly fantastic writer. I know him from the Serious Issues Facebook page, actually.
Oh.
Just great takes on, comics. He's done some great stuff on music in comics before and around those, how those two interlink. But, this was just like a fun little couple-page article of, from stage to page, a guide to musicians who write comics. And it's just a rundown of musicians who write comics. And it was just, it was lovely to see Max Bemis on the very first page, like the second or third one.
Yeah, he gets featured.
Listed.
I actually haven't read this article.
That's pretty great.
Yeah.
Nothing more to it. It's like a quick entry for him. As there's like something odd musicians here, but it was lovely to see him in the positive light and first and foremost.
Yeah, it's I haven't actually read this this article, but yeah, it's good to see Mr. Bemis there, and a big splash on the worst X-Man ever. It's still something I haven't read, but yeah, he's great. His music's good as well. I like his music actually, but yeah, we certainly have. There's certainly a few more there to go through. Sorry, Connor, what were the other standouts there for you?
Oh, that was sort of the only reason I included it. It's just like a nice little list of just musicians. We got Gerard Way, Jeffrey Lewis, Gene Simmons, Alice Cooper, like some...
Oh, Method Man as well. Wouldn't he be there?
Comics, some great artists have written.
Okay. I didn't realise Courtney Hole actually wrote something. That's amazing. Courtney Hole, who the wife or widow of Kurt Cobain, front woman to Hole, which is a very successful 90s band, very kind of grungy band. Wow, I didn't realise she was in there as well. But Max Bemis is actually on the top of my list. No surprises as to why. So that's pretty cool. Next bit of news we have for you, Loonies, is this was posted up on our Facebook group, and it's been around the internets, the intertraps. And it's the Damnation trailer from Marvel. They released it behind the scenes, and they actually interview both Nick Lowe, who is one of the editors, I think, and Donny Cates. And it's a small, tight package on, I guess, the upcoming Damnation event, which is coming mid to late February, which we're all very excited for. And it's a nice little video. Didn't really disclose much more, Connor, I'd say, than what we already know, but it was there to kind of keep the juices flowing for this upcoming event.
You covered it pretty well. Nothing new, but we did get to see some new art from artist Rod Reyes, which looks just absolutely stunning. We know a bit more about what summons Mephisto. There's some cool shots to hotels and casinos being run by the Demon Lord Mephisto, which adds a bit of fun to this crazy event. But this event's like 3 weeks out from this podcast, or like 4 weeks when we finally get around to talking it on here. So it's extremely close. They're probably not wanting to disclose much more, but we cannot wait. Basically.
Yeah, we'll have our hands busy, Connor. There'll be a lot of current comics we'll be reviewing. Also on this as well, there was a release of an image of it, Doctor Strange as well as a few others behind these fiery bars. And one of the takeaways from that I found was great was one, we see the Man-Thing as well, but we see Elsa Bloodstone as well. So more characters. Part of this big event. I cannot wait for Elsa Bloodstone. She's I reckon, I really enjoyed her run in Secret Wars. I believe she was in Zombie, what's that, Zombieland or something? Marvel Zombies. It was a mini tie-in, and she was excellent in that, and in Next Wave, of course, as well. So it's good to see her out and about. I think she's in Monsters Unleashed, right? But I don't collect that. Yes. Are you familiar with? Yeah. So she's a staple in that.
Yeah, she's in it.
Okay.
Yeah, she became.
Yeah. Wasn't too keen on getting Monsters Unleashed, only because, I don't know, it just didn't appeal to me. But she's one of the things I would have read it on. But it was a good piece of art here, Connor. Yeah. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, we had. Yeah, Mr.
Yeah, I just. That's a Rod Reyes cover too.
Mm-hmm. I think so.
I saw Man-Thing there as well.
Yeah, Man-Thing's awesome. Because he's very much in the mystical kind of realm as well, which is quite strange. We have Mr. Knight in the corner there, which is great to see. And it is weird to see the Scarlet Spider there, Ben Reilly, but there's something comforting knowing that there's a spider hero involved, because they're always quite resilient, and it's a bit of a big hitter as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose it's important for him to be in his town.
Yeah.
I think there's always that superhero notion of, like, this is in their hometown, why are they here? But,
yeah.
Scarlet Spidey just wants to protect his home. I think.
Exactly.
I don't know. I don't read that one. Maybe he hates it.
Yeah, yeah, me too. And I think I might pick this up as a digital. I'm wavering whether to pick this up as a digital, or I think, as we mentioned last episode, when the trade is eventually available, because I'm pretty keen on getting the trade, then at least the Scarlet Spider tie-ins will be a bit of a bonus when you get the trade. Thinking one of the two. We'll see how we go. Next bit of news, Con, is a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Massive preview of Moon Knight 191. Like, I don't know how many pages I'll count now, but yeah, woof.
I know, it's a big one, and similar to last time, I think you have devoured all of those pages, yeah, Connor?
Oh, look, I can't. There's a preview. I eat it up.
Yeah,
it looks great. I don't know. I think this one will deliver fantastically, and it just gets me more hyped. But it is a lot of pages. Like, I do not know if I've ever seen a preview this big before.
Yeah, I skimmed it because I don't want to be spoiled. But it's a good 6 pages or something, isn't it? Something like that. I tried.
Yeah, like 8 with the 8? The text page.
Oh, jeez.
Okay. So, like, it's massive.
So say take that away. So say 7. So that's like a good third of the comic already. And I guess it will give a good impression. And there was a lot of talk from previous issue 190. There was a lot of division as to whether it was a good issue or not, with a lot of the topics raised. What was your impression, Connor, so far? We'll cover this next issue when it comes out, next episode. But what were your impressions? Is Bemis and Burrows back on track, or how do you say it?
Yeah, this was a real case of the previous issue being one half of a greater issue.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think everything that I had my own problems with.
Yeah.
I think it's just here. It's solved. It's everything I wanted attached to that previous issue, just split up monthly. I think.
Oh, good.
I bet it'll still be divisive. There's no doubt about that. But me personally, I'm still pretty on. I'm always on board. Like, the last issue didn't kill it for me, but it most certainly made me go, yeah, I love these two. I fucking love Bemis and Burrows.
Yeah,
I love them. It's okay. I'm still marrying them.
They are good. Look, and hey, it's I think a bit of time does help as well. Like, they did shake the tree a bit, and I find myself not as not as frustrated or whatever at the issue anymore. Like, it is what it is, and I gave it another little read again, and I think time kind of heals everything, and it wasn't as bad. So, so looking forward to this one. But yeah, not wanting to be spoilt. Trying to get us on the list again, Connor, for previews. Look, I'm thinking if they can release 7 pages of previews. Marvel surely have have a list where they distribute some previews. I would love to receive them. Look, if we do receive them, and if Marvel are listening right now, I'll read them. So there's no issue with that. But yeah, so we'll try to do that. Try to get that happening. But yeah, a massive preview. I can't really speak too much more about it, Connor, because I haven't really read it, and I don't know what's up ahead. I'm assuming the art is good still, and did it reveal anything? Like, I'm sure it wouldn't have. It's a preview, right? Or...
I'm not going to say anything. We're a week out. We'll be at this place in a week's time revealing
That's true.
it for you. You have about 4 days till everyone's getting in this hot little hands.
That's true.
But I think it'll definitely be worth the wait.
Exactly. And look, we'll post up access to the previews if you do want to have a look at it. As always, on our Facebook group, we'll post up a spoiler thread once the issue is officially out there in the world, and we can get to discussing. So that'll be a lot of fun. Next line of business here, Connor. It's just a small thing I put in because I came across a couple of chats that you were having in the groups that we're in. So with Moon Knight alumni, Marvel released, I think, Legion out just recently as well.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
With Torres?
Yes, Wilfredo Torres.
Wilfredo
doing,
Torres.
Absolutely just crazy wonderful art on that issue. It was definitely, to review the issue, it was definitely sort of like a first part to a crazy tale.
Uh-huh.
But just on, art alone, it was 10 out of 10. This is such a crazy, cool-looking book that embraces Torres' own style and the craziness of the X-Men Legion. Wow. It was just wonderful. The story could be the worst thing, and I'd still be buying it just because Torres and artists, colorists, I'll pull up their name in a sec, but yeah, just wonderful.
Fantastic. And look, for Looney's, Torres is no stranger, as we mentioned. He featured quite a bit in Lemire's run, which was we covered the whole run of that last year and a bit of this year. Torres took on the reins to illustrate, I guess, Stephen Grant's perspective on life, and he had that very crisp, very appealing kind of visual art style. And I guess it'd be interesting to see how he tackles Legion this series, which I believe is a mini. Does it relate at all to Cy Spurrier's X-Men Legacy at all, Connor? Do you know, with Legion there?
Not really.
Okay.
Yeah, this seems like something's... I think... I'm actually not sure how Legion even ended up back in the Marvel Universe, but it sounds like this series will cover it.
Okay.
But yeah, a nice 6-issue mini. We want those, single sales, but if you were to pick this one up in a nice, concise trade, that'll also be, a great-looking read.
Yeah, and look, I think it's... I'm not sure if Marvel have responded to a lot of the fans' requests now, but it seems they are kind of stating... whether things are limited series or not, and giving it a finite number, like one of 6 or one of 5, which I think is a good thing, because I think there was a lot of annoyance from fans as well when titles would just, stop running and just disappear kind of thing. So I think that's a good step that Marvel have taken, because it certainly started...
Yeah. Oh, sorry?
Oh, I was about to say, it certainly started to appear, around this whole Legacy, relaunch. So, it's good.
Yeah. I was, even our Lemire's Moon Knight suffered it because they didn't say it was a 14-issue series from out the gate. When it ended at 14, people assumed their series had been cancelled, but that was Lemire's running time.
Yeah,
how he wanted it. So yeah, it's just such a smart move, and it makes you wonder how they didn't do it before. But putting on the right track's always good.
Yeah, true. And I think in general, I don't know, the state of Marvel at the moment, I've been enjoying a lot of their titles, so, I think a little bit of the heat's been taken off them. They've been kind of scrutinised. Look, they'll always have good titles and they'll always have bad titles, I guess. It depends on what you focus on. And as you said, Connor, look, the Inhumans, Judgment Day, capped off a generally a really good series as well. Just my thoughts on Marvel. So the last bit of news we also have here, I thought I included in, there seems to be confirmation now from Netflix, and actually from the mouth of one of the CEOs or directors there, basically stating that apart from the current crop of Marvel Netflix shows, there won't be any other new Marvel/Netflix shows coming out, new characters. So that kind of kiboshed the whole rumors of of potentially getting a Blade or a Ghost Rider or a Moon Knight series from Netflix. But I think anyway, Connor, that doesn't include the possibility that on Marvel's own streaming service, which will be available soon, that we do get those kind of shows still. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I think mainly the big takeaway from this article was the thing I think we were always expecting when it came to Marvel Netflix. And it's, in a way it's still frightening, but I still think there's a lot of hope. It sounds like these new characters will be very much ported to the new Marvel streaming service and streaming service. And I suppose it all depends how they get treated there, but I think Marvel knows that there's still very much a market for this, and they can't just have a violent universe existing on the ropes of 5 characters. I think we'll be pretty safe in knowing that if Moon Knight does show up, he should be getting his own MA rating, and makes me wonder. So this still confirms that some Marvel Netflix shows are still happening, just not new ones.
Yeah. Basically, I think that what we have at the moment, basically the Defenders plus the Punisher. So Luke Cage, Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Iron Fist, and the Punisher are still kind of part of the Netflix stable, and they'll keep on making them as long as obviously it does well for Netflix. But I guess the emphasis was on they won't be introducing any other new characters in there. There's a potential downside to that, in that I guess we may never, if there is a Moon Knight series in the Marvel streaming service, he may never cross over and meet, say, Frank Castle or Daredevil, because they are essentially in their own self-contained universe. And potentially might have the whole problem again of Marvel trying to reclaim. I don't know how it works, whether they need to reclaim the Defenders and Punisher from Netflix in order to bring them back in the fold. There's a lot of hesitation as well, I guess, on whether or not the Marvel streaming service, being under Disney, will cater to that kind of MA rating. I'm not too worried about that. Look, they said as well, articles a few weeks back, that, we'll see and we'll be sure to let the audience know what it is. If it is an MA rating, and, then we'll give them an MA rating, but we'll be sure to tell the audience. So, it's not like you have families sitting down with their young kids and they see the Kingpin smashing heads in the car doors. But yeah, I guess there's still just a bit of flux as to what happens now, but at least they've confirmed that there won't be any more additional Netflix characters, Marvel characters in the Netflix universe, so to speak, which is a little sad, I guess.
Yeah, I think generally, I'd just prefer it if they just ditched Netflix and brought all those characters over. I hate that separation. That just sounds more heartbreaking than to suffer a violent rating hit or something. Yeah, so I hope there's some change in that as well, and maybe, we see the last of these seasons and then they start new seasons on the streaming service. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's I guess for our for us loonies, it's still like seeing Moon Knight on screen anywhere is still a plus. So it doesn't matter if he's on Netflix or on the Marvel streaming service or on ABC. Still be happy to catch a live version of Moon Knight somewhere.
Yeah.
So that kind of rounds out, I think, the news for this week, Connor.
Yeah, kind of an interesting note to end on with the uncertainty of the future. But
yeah,
it's been a good week for news, and I suppose sounds like we should be hearing more about the streaming service in the future, as things seem to be happening a lot faster now when it comes to getting everything ready, so bring it on.
Yeah, and look, there's still plenty to look forward to as well. Like this year, we're chockers full of Netflix stuff. I mean, we've got Jessica Jones coming, we have Luke Cage coming as well. Iron Fist is in production, I believe. It's well in production. And obviously Daredevil season 3 is on the way as well. And of course there was an early announcement of Punisher season 2, so there's still plenty ahead. But yeah, we'll see. We'll just see how it goes. We've got a lot ahead of us, so we can't complain, I guess, with quantity at least.
Very much so. But I think I don't know. There's no actually good segue here.
No.
I'm just gonna say, let's head over the moon for our issue reviews.
Yes, so we're returning to our classic run and modern run. Look, Connor, I thought as well, we have a special guest again. As our guest narrator, we have the wonderful Morgan Roberts, who is a photographer and a podcaster as well. We approached Morgan to be a guest narrator, and also to kind of get his thoughts on the issues as well. So he's actually returned with a really cool recording for both our classic and modern runs. So I don't want to say too much. I reckon we can just leave it to Morgan to give the introductions.
I think that sounds like a wonderful plan.
Hey there, I'm Morgan Roberts, and I'm a photographer, a podcaster, and a comic book fan. And I really like Moon Knight. I think he's a great character, and I recently finished the Jeff Lemire run and also got into the Warren Ellis run and have heaps of awesome Moon Knight sitting on my iPad ready to read, mostly recommended by the wonderful people here at the Into the Night Moon Knight podcast. Today I'm going to be doing the bare bones read for Defenders Volume 1, issue number 51, Around with the Ringer. This is courtesy of the Marvel wiki page from September 1977, so gee whiz, this is ducking back a bit. From what Ray mentioned about this is only recently realised that Moon Knight had a very brief appearance in this issue, and so they had to chuck it in. And so I'm really going to enjoy getting my tongue around this little nice excerpt from a brief Moon Knight appearance in the Defenders. So here we go. So Defenders Volume 1, Issue 51, Around with the Ringer, September 1977, by David Kraft, with art by Keith Giffen and inks by Klaus Janson. Letters Jasper Saladino and Bruce Patterson. Colours by Phil Raish and editors Archie Goodwin. Nick Fury attempts to get answers from the LMD of Nick Fury himself as to what exactly happened that led to the death of Scorpio, his brother. Meanwhile, as a SHIELD division cleans up the wreckage caused by last issue's grand battle, various other conversations take place. The Hulk mopes in the corner, unhappy at having felt ignored by Nighthawk, and slowly simmers with anger like a child sulking at the feet of his parents. Hellcat, having fought non-stop, and one of the few defenders without any discernible powers, is patched up by the medics as Valkyrie moves towards her and makes her concern known. Nighthawk and Moon Knight chat about the group dynamics and how Moon Knight appears to fit in quite well with the rest of the defenders. And finally, Jack Norris, the man at the centre of the caper, speaks with Nick Fury too. He's still not happy with Fury after Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. captured, drugged and interrogated Norris before the whole fiasco with Scorpio. Gee whiz, what a fiasco. Things do not appear as they seem, as Norris is surprised to hear that the events with Fury weren't as he originally thought, a side effect of being drugged. Fury reveals that it was in fact his S.H.I.E.L.D. operatives that were the ones behind the ill treatment of Norris, and Fury himself actually reproached them for the aggressive techniques that they used. Slightly ashamed at hearing the truth, Norris admits to Fury that he may have reacted a little too hastily towards Nick. Having now reached a sort of truce, Fury then recognises the heart and skill of Norris and so offers him a job at S.H.I.E.L.D. Oh, sweet! Didn't think a job at S.H.I.E.L.D. would be that easy to get. Bloody hell. Fury advises Norris to think it over before giving his final answer as he watches the Fury life model decoy led away by the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. Fury laments that though he did not know whether his brother Scorpio was alive or dead the past 7 years, tragically, he finally has found that closure. As Nighthawk walks with Moon Knight outside, the Mooncopter appears, ready to whisk Moon Knight away. Before he leaps onto the rope ladder, Nighthawk has to ask Moon Knight how exactly he did escape the seal trap by which Scorpio had ensnared Moon Knight. As it happened, Moon Knight reveals that the fortuitous beer that Scorpio handed Moon Knight was instrumental in his escape. As the trap filled with water, Moon Knight drained the beer can and used the extra oxygen in the can alongside controlled breathing to give him enough time to effect his escape. Hey, what an awesome little ninja move. As Moon Knight floats up into the sky on his rope ladder, Nighthawk salutes the Avatar of Vengeance for both his bravery and genius. While in Russia, Tani is taken to a secret project known only as Sergei. While Valkyrie begins to establish a new life for herself by starting college, she meets Dollar Bill and Ledge, while a new villain known as Ringer tries to rob a bank, bringing him into conflict with Nighthawk. As Jack Norris comes looking for his wife, Hellcat takes him out for a walk to talk about his life. Nighthawk defeats Ringer, and Valkyrie gets acquainted with her new friends, unaware that an attacker is in the shadows, stalking the students of Empire State University. Oh gee, I feel like I should go and give the rest of that a read. That sounds like a whole bunch of stuff going on with a whole bunch of little plots and subplots and extra plots and mini plots and a lot of chatting about life and, I don't know, sounds pretty fun. Well, that was Defenders Volume 1, Issue 51, Around with the Ringer by David Kraft. September 1977. -10. I was -10 in that year, so it's pretty well dated there.
Thank you so much, Morgan, for that first narration of a difficult one, because it is a very truncated appearance of Moon Knight in the overall issue. But yeah, Morgan from What Do You Make podcast, giving us a fine narration to Defenders 51. Connor, what a short but sweet little appearance by Moon Knight.
Yeah, what a nice little an explanation of an escape from a daring death trap, and then a way with the wind.
Yeah, it was. Who knew that such a little thing like the beer would be his means of escape. I also just wanted to say I really liked Morgan's take on Fury offering Norris the job there. It didn't really take much for him to say, "Yep, yeah, you'd be a fit S.H.I.E.L.D. agent for sure." Like, yeah, all right, okay.
Yeah, that's always been the thing with S.H.I.E.L.D. over the years. I think I've always noticed in Marvel Comics, it's never exactly the leadest. It's always failing. People just going in and out of it like nothing. Villains, side characters, just a bit of everything. They're not exactly, number one business in the world, I think.
No, and let's hope Maria Hill, when she took over the reins, she kind of tightened the ship up a bit, because this Fury Senior, I'm not too sure. he's grabbing, he's abducting people, and then he's kind of offering them jobs. I don't know what's going on, but look, hey, let's go, Connor. I know that you have. Look, there's only a few aspects to this. I think you've nailed the biggest aspect of this issue for Moon Knight's appearance.
Yeah, let's talk about that beer for a second. We know beer was a big motif in the last 4 issues for whatever reason, and it was also the only reason Moon Knight was saved. He poured out his beer, he obviously pumped some oxygen into it, and then used it as a way to control his breathing and have an extra source of oxygen until the water pit, until he could open the valve. So, yeah. I mean, a beer saved his life, but I don't know. Seems fitting for this run, I think.
I think
it's my takeaway.
Yeah, I think it's pretty funny. Look, okay, the beer, it did explain how he got to hold his breath a little bit longer, but it still didn't really explain how he got out of the trap, which I think is just conveniently left unsaid. Sure, he had controlled breathing and he had the oxygen in the can, but he'd still have a bit of work to do trying to open that valve and you escape unnoticed as well. But such is the writing of the Bronze Age, I guess. It's a few details here and there. Yeah, and also, look, the beer's also called Schlitz. I wonder if that's an actual brand or not.
Yeah, actually, that would make more sense why I'd have such a motif.
Yeah, exactly. But so that's pretty much it for the aspect for this small appearance by Moon Knight. Look, the only other aspect I put in it as well was obviously there was some words exchanged between Nighthawk and Moon Knight, in the fact that Moon Knight did so well fighting alongside the Defenders that there was a possible, even an indirect suggestion that he kind of joined the team, which would have been interesting. But I think as we know now from Moon Knight's canon, that he's very much a lone wolf, and he prefers to just jump on that rope ladder and swing away to his next adventure. It's funny because kind of I always imagined Spider-Man, Daredevil, and Moon Knight to be very much lone figures when it comes to their crusading, but we have seen over the years that Spider-Man, and now even in the films, is part of the Avengers. Part of a team, and even Daredevil as well. He actually joins the Avengers at some point, which is very weird for me, because Daredevil to me is very much I do it myself. We also see Moon Knight in the Avengers as well, but he's always seen as a bit on the outer as well, and I think that's a really cool thing about Moon Knight. He's always not totally with them all.
Yeah, it seems like at least writer, I always forget this writer's name. Poor writer.
I think it's David Kraft.
Yes, David Kraft. I think they had an idea of what they wanted to do at Marvel with his Lone Wolf range, which is pretty cool, which is always, kept such a big part of his character, as you said, which is nice.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. Any notes for this, Connor? I've got a couple. I've got off the top of my head here. Just by looking...
Not really, so I'll let you take the floor.
All right, well, the first one I thought was on the second page. We see Gemini from the Zodiac still there. Now, if we remember from the previous issues, Gemini, obviously part of the villains contingent, but he was kind of sitting on the fence, and we saw last issue he was the one that actually, I guess, tipped the scales and actually gave the advantage to the heroes, who eventually ended up beating the villains. So it was a bit of a grey area for Gemini as to whether he or she is a good or bad figure. But we see him here with the medics, just saying be gentle with her, referring to Hellcat as the medics kind of patch her up. So I thought that's pretty cool to see Gemini still there. It would have been good to see Libra still there, Connor, but the intangible one seems to have vanished.
Yeah, a solemn goodbye to those one-off apperances. But
there's crazy
friends.
Yeah, goodbye, friends. We'll see you soon. And the other one I thought was I thought this was actually a little bit of bad form from Nick Fury himself. It was the explanation to Jack Norris about Jack Norris's abduction, and basically. Previously, Norris had been abducted by S.H.I.E.L.D. and put in a drug-induced state to try and get him to reveal some information. I think it was about the presidential candidate. And Fury here just basically he palms it off and he blames his underlings for it. He basically says, "Oh, it wasn't me, but it was my what did he say here? But it was a couple of his boys who were giving him the third degree." And Fury says that I gave him a talking down to because of their techniques, but he took no responsibility there. Now, I would have thought as a good manager or as a good superior officer, you would take responsibility for what your underlings do. So, yeah, I thought that was a little bad on Fury's, and I thought it was a poor excuse. So I don't believe Norris should have accepted that apology.
Yeah, I agree. Nick Fury was a total ass here. You know, Jack Norris suffered, was mad at Fury, and Fury's like, "Nah, I'm the hero here.
Yeah,
I'll wait for your apology.
Exactly.
Here's the job. Get out of here."
I think that's even worse. To try and kind of silence him, he kind of goes, well, how about a job at Shield then? If that will kind of, smooth things out. Which again is not a criteria, as Morgan pointed out. To get into the into Shield. So yeah. So a little bad form there from Nick Fury from this issue. Okay, Connor, I guess we can still maybe do some Crescent Dart ratings. I know this is, again, a very weird one because it's a very short one. But if we were to... It is a difficult one. I mean, if we were to grade this, how would you grade this one?
I don't know. I guess I'd give it a blanket 2.5 out of 5 Crescent Darts. 3. Ends it up nicely, ties a bow, sets up the next arc. It's not too bad. Just sort of the rest of the quality this run has been through.
yeah, I'd agree. Total, maybe the consistency is there. I'd give it a 2.5, which is, it's right in the middle, 2.5 out of 5. So it's not absolutely terrible, but it's, there are better stories out there. Actually, as you said, it wrapped up things quite nicely because although the story did wrap up in issue 50, there was that hanging thing about how did Moon Knight escape that trap. So it was good that they at least addressed that. So let's call that a fair 2.5 Crescent Darts out of 5 for issue 51. Well, so I think that ends that pretty much ends the Defenders run there, Connor.
Yeah.
And we've got a next... we've actually, apart from this, the next run, in the classic run, we see Moon Knight team up with Spider-Man. So that will be pretty exciting to...
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, pretty exciting to read. And we've got a few things in the works there as to how we'll present that. But all will be revealed in the later episodes. Let's move on to... We've got the final wrap-up to Resurrection War here, Connor, part 4, the full moon. So, I'll throw it back. I'm sorry?
Yeah, no, I won't say anything. We'll just throw to Morgan. What were you saying?
Okay. Well, sorry, I cut you off. All right, well, let's, Morgan, take it away.
All right, up next we have Moon Knight Volume 3, Issue Number 4, Resurrection War Phase 4, Full Moon. Now, without having read issues surrounding this, it was an interesting little, straight up, but, the comic gave me enough, I think, to sort of figure out what was going on. There was a previous battle, he already had a battle with Black Spectre, and it was interesting having a read, as not really having read a lot. I only got into comics a couple of years ago, and so not having read a ton of older issues, even only so recent as 1998, which this was written. It's funny seeing the over explanation of things, and there's the scene where Morpheus and Bushman are loading the crate with a statue of Set in it into a plane, and enough, Bushman. After Set's dark power perverts the UN conference, turning a dozen small wars into a single global conflict, you and I will confiscate the world. It's like, mate, you don't have to iterate your whole plan every time you talk about the plan. But it was fun, and it's a lovely way of, seeing how comics used to be done, whereas, you could look at a page like this in a more modern sort of run where, Jeff Lemire writes, 2 words and that's it. But there's still plenty of script. There's plenty of stuff going on. So it's very interesting. So This is Moon Knight Volume 3, Issue 4, Resurrection War Phase 4, Full Moon. And April 1998 by Doug Mensch, art by Tommy Lee Edwards and Robert Campanella, colours by Melissa Edwards, letters by Ken Lopez, and Mark Bernardo is the editor. Moon Knight suffers more dreams of past pain and horrors from his mercenary days. It's enough to steel himself against the dark forces ahead. And this is furthered by Khonshu's messages to Moon Knight that Set must be stopped. All of a sudden, Set appears in Moon Knight's dreams too, and he destroys Khonshu in front of Moon Knight's eyes. This was a funny section of the comic to read because I didn't initially realise it was a dream sequence, and it was all very heavy-handed and strange, and then I was, then it brings you into Stephen awakening and realising it's a dream. Stephen awakens, then punches and cracks the mirror in front of him, frustrated at yet another one of his dreams, convinced that Detective Flint is correct and that the UN conference will be the target for Set. Stephen leaves Marlene to meet up with Flint to gain more answers. Elsewhere, Bushman meets up with Morpheus at an airstrip near Cairo, and he has with him the statue of Set. Their third accomplice, Black Spectre, is appointed with disrupting the airport, and by him doing so, the trio are able to load the statue on a chopper bound for New York. As Morpheus surmises, the power of Set will pervert the UN conference, resulting in global conflict, and will expose the world ripe for the taking. City Councilman Jonathan Vankin arrives home in the evening when suddenly he's accosted by the Moon Knight. The White Avenger gains information from Vankin on how Black Spectre plans to take over New York City. Fear, intimidation, and delivery of threats have managed to buoy Black Spectre's rise to the top, and according to Vankin, he's not far from succeeding. Moon Knight motions for Detective Flint and his officers to come out. They've been monitoring the conversation and take Vankin in for further questioning. Flint, however, has more pressing concerns, that of the UN conference. But Moon Knight reassures him that he will take care of matters. A rope ladder drops down from above. The silent, ominous moon jet hovers above, and in an instant, Moon Knight is gone. Sorry, boys, had to have a sip of gin. Moon Knight changes to Jake Lockley. Does he change to Jake Lockley? I don't know. Doesn't he just... I don't know. Look, whatever. Moon Knight changes to Jake Lockley and heads to Gina's diner, where he asks Gina if her sons, Ricky and Ray, are willing to earn some cash for a bit of surveillance. Lockley wants eyes on Pier 23, the previous hideout for the Black Spectre. Ricky and Ray make their way to Pier 23, and soon tail a car from the pier to Queen's Mansion, and in one of the limos they spot Black Spectre. Lockley tells the boys to keep following the limo as he changes into Moon Knight and readies for action. 10 minutes later, at a private runway, Black Spectre awaits in the car for the arrival of Bushman and Morpheus. Moon Knight gains the element of surprise and savagely yanks Black Spectre out through the car window. Oh, this was such a great panel as well, where his Moon Knight just appears in the frame, and it's just this classic... Oh, it's just wonderful comics. As the two tussle, Black Spectre's henchmen attempt to join the fray, but are met with a flurry of arrows. It's Stained Glass Scarlet. She's perched up high, and like a red angel, she watches Moon Knight and picks off the henchmen one by one. Moon Knight continues to trade blows with Black Spectre, and even saves him from one of Stained Glass Scarlet's arrows, whose intent is to kill all enemies. This time, however, Moon Knight wins the fight, and with Black Spectre beaten but not killed, Moon Knight learns of Bushman and Morpheus' imminent arrival. One of the awesome panels in this fight scene is the classic camera shot where Moon Knight's looking in slightly frame left, and you can see the enemy behind him, Black Spectre, not fully knocked out yet, pick up a knife or something, and it's about to get him, and then Moon Knight, just reaches up his hand and boom, smacks him down without turning around and looking at him in one of those classic comic moves. Oh, it was just great. As the chopper lands, which carries Bushman, Morpheus, and the statue of Set, Moonlight fearlessly rushes towards them and targets Bushman. Crescent darts fly, and bullets are dodged as Moon Knight tackles Bushman, and the two shatter through a hangar window amidst a crowd of civilians. The ferocity of the fight is short, but it is again Moon Knight who gains the upper hand, as he neutralises Bushman just in time for Detective Flint to arrive and clean up. Gee, they always just have to come and clean up the cops, don't they? Gee, it's a shit job having a cop. Just come and clean up all the superhero, they'll get all the glory. With only one villain left, Moon Knight rushes out again, but is unsuccessful to reach Morpheus's chopper. As it flies off towards the UN conference with cargo in tow, Moon Knight hitches a ride on the Moonjet, and in an absolute feat of amazement, he glides from the Moonjet on his cape and crashes mid-air through the front window of Morpheus's helicopter, avoiding the blades by millimeters. Morpheus is a tougher opponent than Bushman or Black Spectre, and Moon Knight has a hard time resisting Morpheus' illusions and avoiding his ebb and energy blasts. Not sure what is real or not, Moon Knight then sees the statue of Set come to life, and as it attacks him, the chopper spirals out of control. Moon Knight shrugs off his disbelief and kicks the statue out of the chopper, shattering it on the ground below. Instinctively, Moon Knight then evades Morpheus once more and knocks him out. With not much time left, Moon Knight jumps out of the chopper before it, alongside Morpheus, crashes into the harbour. With the threat now over, Moon Knight returns to Grant Mansion and ponders with Marlene and Frenchie as they still do not have the final answer. Does Khonshu possess actual powers? Did Set ever possess equal but opposite powers? Was Stephen resurrected by Khonshu? Marlene doesn't know, nor does she care, as long as I can feel you, Stephen. I can touch you. I can love you. That's all I need to know. And then the Rachmaninoff plays. Well, that's a wrap. What a classic comic. Some crazy comic capers happening in that one. Thanks, guys, for having me on, doing the guest narration. If anyone wants to know a bit more about what I do, you can find me on Instagram at Morgan C. Roberts. The C is an initial C. And yeah, I've got a couple of others, but they're probably, look, to be honest, they're probably going to change the Instagram handle within a week, so there's no point in me telling you them because they'll all be different because I'm a fruitcake and change my Instagram handles all the time. But that one will stay the same. You can find me at Morgan C. Roberts on Twitter as well. And I do a podcast called What Do You Make? Interestingly, I have had Levins and Siobhan from the Serious Issues podcast, both as guests separately on my podcast. So the episode with Siobhan actually is quite a great comic book discussion episode. So obviously if you're into this podcast, you might want to check that out. But I do that podcast, and every episode I make a photograph of the guest who I have on, either in my studio if I'm at home, or if I'm traveling and interviewing someone on the road, interstate or whatever. I usually try and do some kind of environmental portrait of that person. So there's a photo of Siobhan outside the front of King's Comics. So check that out. Previous guest narrators of Into the Night podcast, Levins and Siobhan. So thanks for having me on. That's my podcast. That's where you can find me on social. And yeah, keep reading Moon Knight, guys.
Great. Thank you so much, Morgan, for that second narration. This time wrapping up Moon Knight Volume 3, Resurrection War. So we got part 4 of 4 here, Connor. A bumper of an issue. Very different from our brief wrap-up of Defenders 51. First impressions, what do you reckon of this one?
I really enjoyed it. I think, first and foremost, it was a great action comic, like an incredible action comic, which was sort of like most of the issue's bulk. But, it was kind of like a nice finale, almost in a way of like, welcome back, Moon Knight, now you're set up for your next adventures. sort of thing.
I totally agree, and I think it was again alluded to by Morgan there on the narration. This is very much a jam-packed action comic. To me, it was very cinematic. A lot of the action scenes were I think ripped straight out of, I guess, celluloid. I can imagine them on the big screen. Very grand, and Moon Knight's kept busy here. He's taking on all three villains with a little help from Stained Glass Scarlet. But overall, quite a thrilling end to this arc of Resurrection War. Okay, shall we head into the aspects here, Connor?
I think that sounds like a good time.
What was... look, do you want to go first, or...?
No, I'll let you take it away.
Okay.
You've got an aspect I was thinking of covering myself, so...
yes. Well, yeah, the first one I thought, and it was kind of summed up in the last page of this, and it's been a running thread throughout the whole arc, or the whole series, and that is basically, was Set real? And, that extended to, is Khonshu real? And is this whole thing kind of real, or is it a figment of imagination or of Morpheus's illusions? And a lot of it is still very much up in the air. Like, we know Morpheus is not 100% mentally there, but he can cast illusions as well. And Morpheus is 100% sure of Set's existence, right? The whole reason why he does this is to worship and to follow Set's ways. In contrast, we have in the climax, when Moon Knight is on the helicopter there with Morpheus, Moon Knight starts to see the statue of Set turn into an animated figure. Now, we don't know whether that is... Well, we're led to believe that is actually one of Morpheus's illusions, because when Moon Knight kicks the statue out of the helicopter, it's verified by Frenchie as well that it was indeed a statue. It wasn't an animated living thing. When he kicks Set out of the helicopter, it smashes on the ground as a statue. So we as a reader and the likes of Frenchie and such see it as just a statue, but we see Moon Knight and Morpheus at least see the true face of Set, in that he comes alive. This is just one big example of a lot of the things that we see along the way as well. But I really do... one of the main things that they do try and grasp and tackle, especially at the end as well with Marlene, and what she says, were you really resurrected? Was Khonshu the one that really brought you back? There are a lot of unanswered questions here, and Munch maintains this ambiguity between what could possibly be supernatural and what is just a figment of one's own mind. That's what do you reckon, Connor, with that kind of aspect?
Yeah, I'll bring this. I guess I'll put my aspect as to Moon Knight and Faith to just talk about this here. But yeah, it was this issue and this run was a lot about faith. To sort of faith in yourself and faith in like some sort of power. Like you said, it was really important to see that Black Spectre really did believe that Set was the reason he was so much stronger, and that, doing all this would grant him greater power. And that might still be true. We honestly just don't know. And, Morpheus really shook the boat in this one. Was he stronger because of Set himself, or did he become stronger and create Set? Was Set real as well, or possibly just not that strong?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I, in a lot of ways, I like the ambiguity. I suppose as we head into High Strangers after this, I kind of hope maybe we see some more questions answered. But I think in a lot of ways, I like how just sort of how what's the word I'm looking for? How open this is, how up to interpretation it is, and I think that sometimes sucks and can sometimes be the mark of a poor storyteller. But I think knowing this was Munch's, finale. This is what he wrote this run for. It kind of ends in a way that supports that really well and doesn't feel so oh, that's it, sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Well, I think just going off your point as well, I think the beauty of Munch's writing here is that the tension he creates. Like, for so long, we're led to believe that everything will culminate in this UN conference meeting. You know, a very tropey thing about getting set over to the UN conference. We don't even see that happen in this. The story ends before that even is reached. You know, Moon Knight squashes that mission to get set over there. But I think the tension of what would have happened, like we're thinking, okay, what would have happened if Morpheus did make it to the UN conference? Would there be global conflict? You know, would there be chaos? Or would there just be a madman bringing a statue over there and really nothing happening? I mean, I'm sure he's got he can cast illusions and stuff, but so we're kind of left with that tension because it's kind of unresolved. I mean, for me, I thought, like, just when I was reading it, there's that expectation to reach that climax, that point of when they get to the UN conference, and the fact that it isn't reached, I think creates that tension that we get, and also kind of leaves things up in the air, as you say, leaves things open, and look, I think that's a sign of a good storyteller as well. I mean, you don't want to spell everything out to the reader. To spell everything out would be quite boring, actually. So to leave things open and to your own interpretation is I think really cool. It reminds me kind of just in a little way of The Killing Joke. You know how there's that ambiguity at the end of it when Batman and the Joker are there. You don't know what happens, and it's Alan Moore, isn't it? Is it Alan Moore or Frank Miller?
Yes.
Alan Moore, yeah.
Alan Moore.
Alan Moore, and they're wondering, okay, what happens? Does Batman kill the Joker? You don't know. And I love that kind of, things are kind of left up in the air. So, that was a common thread throughout all, and I thought it just culminated with the that massive scene in the helicopter with Moon Knight and the statue of Set. How about one of your aspects there, Connor? I know it kind of tied in there with the faith, but you were talking about the power of faith.
I'll get to that after your next point, actually.
Okay.
I also want to add to your ending there when you spoke about, what would have happened if Morpheus got to the UN. I like as well that, it didn't go down the path that, like a really a big trope of, like some superhero comics is like, this God character is the reason everything in human history happened, and it was the reason World War II happened, or something like that.
Yeah.
There was a lot of, like, as you said, there was ambiguity. Not only was there ambiguity with Set, but also his power. Moon Knight acknowledged that terrible things happen in this world without Set's influence. Like, even if Set became a power, like, what could that have meant for the world? Would it have just been something they could have stopped? Would the world really have been plunged into darkness? Which is, I suppose, the poetic writer Munch would have wanted to leave us on.
Yes.
Yeah, I think before we continue singing his praises, I want to swing to the art that... so this issue was a big roundhouse of fighting on all fronts.
Yeah.
And, of course, that leads a lot to Tommy Lee Edwards, but also as a matter of Tommy Lee Edwards and... Is it Melissa Edwards?
Melissa Edwards, yeah. The colours, yeah.
Yeah, the fantastic. That was a great contrast of light and dark in this issue, especially. There's a lot of really deep battles in the night. I love such great fight scenes that always seem punctuated by, the darkness punctuated by machine gun fire or something else or something more. And it just, and the way it's used to show, whether someone's winning, when Moon Knight's ever failing in this issue, it's always dark, when Morpheus shoots his airborne energy, it's Moon Knight shrouded in darkness trying to escape.
Yeah.
But when he's got the upper hand, it's this light burning panel of Moon Knight kicking Set out of the plane, and it's just this great contrast of what the story's trying to tell us with these conflicting powers of light and dark, and it's just great artistic storytelling as well as this incredibly detailed and incredibly fluent art by Edwards, with incredible scenes of punches and kicks and a lot of great scenes with flying through glass especially. That was a big motif. Tackles and punching through windows and helicopter panels. So you know, it was just a great action issue all round, with the colours once again being such an important part of storytelling that just made it such a delight.
Yeah, look,
and I know I'm rambling, but
that's great. I just want to also point out as well, and so I had not given that information to Morgan as well. Actually, from pages 17 to 21, it's not Tommy Lee Edwards' art; it's John Paul Leon's, and you can see a slight difference. It is quite similar, so it's kind of easy to maybe not pick up, but there is a shift in the art from page, say, 17. And I think that's in particular the fight with Bushman. So I'm only assuming Tommy Lee Edwards had some timing difficulties with schedule or something. So John Paul Leon stepped in. Very similar art, but yeah, this crashing through the window, it was awesome. One with Moon Knight and Bushman through the airport hangar. These action scenes were just brilliant. And with the casting of light and dark, again, I think Edwards with Melissa Edwards, as you say, are just brilliant. And you can see that more in their pictures. I mean, if you do a quick comparison between John Paul Leon's pages, 17 to 21, and the rest of the issue, you can really see the difference of how Tommy Lee Edwards treats shadow and dark. It's really cool.
And I think as well, the fact it looks... John Paul Leon's and Tommy Lee Edwards' art looks so similar is luckily keeping a consistent colorist as well, which helps.
Yeah,
and it's
for sure.
It's just a nice fit. Like, they made the smart choice getting John Paul Leon as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's great. So my movie, just going on to my next aspect, which was tying into this actually, was just how unstoppable Moon Knight was. I mean, we have a guy here who's taking on basically three of his main arch rivals, and we know later on in series later on how difficult it is to actually just to beat one. Yet Moon Knight here manages to incapacitate Bushman, who is no slouch when it comes to hand-to-hand combat. He manages to knock him out and leaves Detective Flint, as Morgan states, leaves the cops to clean up the mess. But he also, just prior to that as well, he beats Black Spectre, who had previously had beaten him quite easily in the tussles that they had fought in earlier on in Resurrection War. And then finally, with the fantastic look, I was talking about cinematic kind of action sequences. The scene where Moon Knight glides from his own mooncopter through the air on his cape and smashes through Morpheus's helicopter windscreen was just it's quite inspired, actually. It was really cool. But he takes on Morpheus, arguably the strongest out of all the three villains, and he manages to beat him as well. So we have rather an unstoppable Moon Knight here, Connor.
Yes, and and just sort of tying in, I'll include my next aspect. Once again, this becomes Moon Knight so unstoppable, like Black Spectre had been before him, is because he feels so empowered. You know, not only does he, it's possible, you know, once again, Khonshu's influence, was it really there? Was it all in his head? But it's once again Moon Knight accepting his role back from the dead and just swinging it one to these guys. You know,
yeah,
he's so assured of the quest he has to do, and whether he has the moon, he always has the moon's guide, and whether it's Khonshu or not, it doesn't matter, because, you know, this is his path, this is his goal, and it's just wham bam, you know, three of his biggest villains that can take him down in other series, in whole arcs of just one-on-one fighting where Moon Knight gets the shit beat out of him, but here he's not having it, he's taking him down.
Yeah, I guess it shows that when you're totally focused and your mind is clear, how effective you can be, which is basically this here. It kind of reminds me, Connor, of those, you know, those those kids' films or something where, just say for instance, the little kid is not playing like baseball all that well, but his dad or someone gives him a baseball bat and says, "This is a magical bat. You know, you can score limitless runs with it," and it's because he believes it that he does it, you know, and but in reality it's just a normal bat, if you know what I mean. It's a bit of a strange analogy, but it's kind of how I see it here as well. Like, Moon Knight is kind of, he's clear of thinking now, and he's got faith. And whether or not Khonshu is real or not, he has faith in himself, and with that, he's able to he's able to be the great superhero that he is, able to do crazy feats like jumping from copter to copter, helicopter to helicopter. It's fantastic stuff.
100%.
Yeah.
Could not agree less. And a great use of truncheons and
yeah.
all that jazz in here as well.
Oh, that's all. Yeah, always there.
Yeah, he's almost like actually, just kind of reminded me. Yeah, it definitely reeks back to Moon Knight's truly taking back the cow. The cow.
Mm-hmm.
Cow.
Yeah.
Strange. The cow, just because of how fearless he is. He's someone who, prefers to take the hit and just doesn't matter how much he takes, will always stand up. And, the leaps of faith he makes that could end in his death, but regardless, he'll do it to win, sort of thing. It's just all done without,
Yeah, he's kind of like the epitome also of like the man without fear, isn't he? I keep on going back to it, but like we talk about Daredevil having no fear. Moon Knight can very well be the same, cut from the same cloth. He really is just fearless when he does anything, and that could be partly due to he's a bit crazy as well, so he kind of loses that inhibition. But it's always fun to see Moon Knight in action scenes. He's great.
100%. I'm not. Is there any extra notes you want to add? I feel like we've covered Moon Knight's daring quest.
Oh, just a little note I had was, look, as much as we said, it was really great that things were left ambiguous. It was really cool as well. There was a little niggling thing, with me wanting answers, which you'll never get in a story like this. But just the thing about how Mark indeed was resurrected, because it was resurrected in such spectacular fashion. Like if you think about it, like in real world stakes.
True.
Yeah, like he was dead for a while. He was dead, like buried, right? And if you think about it in real world stakes, Marlene and Frenchie walk into the mansion, and the statue explodes, and Mark's there. Now, look, whether the statue actually exploded or not, maybe it didn't even explode. Okay, let's put that aside. But where the hell did Mark come from then? He was buried. Like, he was gone. So, there's got to be some sort of, there was that kind of explanation I was hoping to at least be led towards, or at least hinted towards, and how that happened. But I guess it must be down to, you've got to put it down to the supernatural, to Khonshu and some sort of influence there.
Yeah, I definitely think possibly he does make it more clear of Khonshu's presence than anything, because, really thinking back to it, the way he returned and Khonshu's influence, I do think very much this is possibly, just as much setting up Khonshu and Mark's, whether they, how they reunite, and just seem to become such a powerful force together. So, I think that's definitely a takeaway, and it's not, I do like the ambiguity, but possibly with another issue, the ambiguity could have become less ambiguous while still being ambiguous, but, once again, it is still like a tight ending that probably would have had to been more, less clear if he had to, push 5 issues instead, so...
Yeah. No, exactly. And look, what we spoke about a little bit earlier as well, I wouldn't mind actually rereading this again all the way through, from part 1 to part 4, because we did kind of read it like in a serial format, and with 4-parters, for me, it could work both ways. It could be a good thing or a bad thing, but I don't know, I'm just interested to see how fluid it is if we read it, part 1 to part 4, one after the other. That would have been cool. Yeah. So I guess we can go to Crescent Dart ratings for this to wrap up Resurrection War.
Yes. All right.
I would give it a solid 4 out of 5. Again, I think I really enjoyed this issue myself. I think the last 2 issues of Resurrection War really do kind of hit a home run, so to speak. Again, the art is great, and there was no hiccup by having an interim artist in between. It was quite fluent. If you read it, from front to back, you can easily think that it was the same artist. It was very, very well chosen, like the other artist. And again, art as usual, the colours and the art was fantastic. But again, action-wise, I love my action, and this had it in spades. And we get to see Moon Knight beat up on 3 of his main villains, so I was very, very happy with that. So I'd give it a 4.
I think 4 is a nice number. It was still, a very great action-packed issue with great art and kind of, wrapped it up nicer than I was expecting. I was really expecting this to be rushed, and that could still possibly be said, but I think it definitely worked. Moch planned this out better than I was expecting with that nice finale. But I think, just sort of in general, it's still probably not like the most standout Moon Knight story.
Yeah,
it's still very much kind of a simple return. So yeah, like 4 out of 5 is just what a nice number I'd give it. It's a perfectly good fitting return for Moon Knight with his cast all set back up, his powers, and I think it's a smart way to reintroduce him to the status quo with a story alongside. So I mean, when looking at it that way, not much else to ask for, with a 4 out of 5 being I think a good rating for an issue. And I look forward to High Strangers now even more as well.
Yeah, that will be it'll be interesting as well. High Strangers, which apparently the correct title, High Strangeness, but somehow
okay.
Yeah, but apparently High Strangers was featured on all the covers. But if you look at the inside of the covers, the first page, High Strangeness. But yeah, that would be an interesting run to cover as well, Connor. I thought for our next modern run, since we've wrapped up this one, I was hoping we might tackle the big one. We might tackle Houston's run. What do you reckon?
You know what? Let's do this. I think we're all in.
I mean, it's one of the. I only say one of the big ones because, a bit self-indulgent. It is one of my favourite runs. One of my favourite runs. And yeah, I think it'll be fun to cover. Look, there's a lot of loonies talking about it as well. I mean, we can always do High Strangers as well. I don't mind. But with our classic run, as usual, we'll be going along our usual thread. So the next appearance that Moon Knight appears in comics throughout history will be the next run, which I do believe is Spectacular Spider-Man 22 and 23. So yeah, we've got that ahead of us. Anyway, I guess that wraps up our Over the Moon review. Once again, thanks to Morgan Roberts for the fantastic narrations and for I love the comments and
the commentary was awesome.
Yeah, the comments along the way as well. I told Morgan, I said, that's brilliant what you've done. He said, I might encourage other guest narrators to do that as well, because it's really cool to not only hear someone narrate but to get their insight as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, big thanks to Morgan. His podcast is fantastic. Such a wide range of not just comic readers but all walks of life, and just interesting looks at their respective really fun while being intellectual and all that great stuff. It was a great commentary by Morgan, and
yeah,
who knows, we might even hopefully see his return back on here. So
yeah,
thanks very much, Morgan.
Yeah, that'd be great. Next phase, Connor. What do we have?
What do we have next phase? Yes, we have the big one back at it again. Bemis, after his 8-page preview, we have the full issue dropping this coming Wednesday.
Yep.
And our next episode will be focused on Moon Knight Volume 9, issue 191, Crazy Runs in the Family Part 4. We have someone from the Facebook group coming in to narrate for us.
Yeah.
Awesome. And as long as we don't ramble on for way too long, we're looking at also including a wonderful Funko Pop Classic Moon Knight review. So look forward to that, my friends. Look forward to that.
Yeah, that will be good. Hopefully, third time's a charm for the Funko Pop. We've been trying to get it on, but look, there's just been so so much Mooney goodness around, so it was hard to stop talking about the other stuff like the TV appearances and such. So, yeah, look, hopefully we're going to be just reviewing that one issue next week, so we should have a little bit of wiggle room to include the Funko Pops. Both Connor and I have them ready to go. Can't wait. Oh, also Connor, my gosh, I haven't forgot to add it into the news as well. Another bit of information was that I think they had more confirmation of the Mini-Mates for Moon Knight.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that is still... I think you can pre-order them now. And so, Loonies, what that is that you get... there are 4 sets of 2 Mini-Mates. I'm not really familiar with Mini-Mates, but you get Daredevil and Iron Fist as one. You get Jessica Jones and Purple Man as the other. You also get Luke Cage and, oh my gosh, I can't remember who the other person is. And then you get Moon Knight and the Punisher as well. So there are 8 Mini-Mate figures, and if you collect all of them, you get little parts, components to build a figure and create Quake from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So, Ghost Rider. I think Luke Cage is with Ghost Rider. So all those characters are really right in our wheelhouse, Connor. So, yeah, Loonies, if you're keen, there's a Moon Knight figure in there as well. We'll have to go grab those ourselves and do a review of those as well.
I think that sounds like a good reason to get me to buy stuff I would feel otherwise bad about doing. So
Yeah,
thanks,
exactly.
podcast, for being a great part of that.
Exactly. Clear conscience. Okay, so we've got the next spectacle. Again, I just wanted to shout out, as we mentioned, Morgan Roberts, fantastic narrator. He can be found on Instagram, as he said, and as he said, his handles changed, so you can try him at Morgan Roberts Photo or at Morgan Roberts Weddings. He's on Instagram there. He also has a website for his photography, morganrobertsphotography.com, so go check that out. As he mentioned, he is also a multi-talented guy. He's also a podcaster, so he does What Do You Make, which is a great podcast. He interviews creative people from all walks of life, whether they be, as he mentioned, Levins and Siobhan, from podcasters, comic collectors, musicians, comedians, you name it. He interviews them all. Very, very entertaining stuff. And that can be found on all good podcast catchers like Apple Podcasts or Overcast. He has a website for that at www.whatdoyoumake.show, SHOW. And as he mentioned as well, he's on Twitter at Morgan C. Roberts. So we'll put up all the info as well on our social platforms, and we'll shout him out as well because he's done a great job with the narrations there.
100%, yeah. And where you can find our very own selves, we are at intothenightpodcast.wordpress.com. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/ITKMoonKnight. For a fantastic group of Moonies talking 24/7, we have facebook.com/groups/intothennight. You can find us at Twitter at ITK Mood Night. Our podcast page, we are now on the lovely podcast hosting service that is just wonderfully easy to use and for you guys to download from Libsyn at intothennight.libsyn.com. And then you can find us on Instagram, Tumblr, YouTube, hopefully all your podcast catchers you guys are using at Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast. We're now on Spotify as well, I believe.
Yeah.
Which is another lovely place you can find us if that's your host of choice.
Yeah, so plenty of places to find us. Thank you once again, Loonies, for giving us a listen. Yeah, we're cracking into 2018. We've got a few things planned ahead, which Connor and I are still working through, but are just around the corner, so can't wait to reveal that for you guys. Yeah, as we mentioned earlier, Connor, we've got there's a lot of comics now that Moon Knight will be featured in, so that will keep us busy with the modern runs, well, with the current runs.
Yeah, 100%. Who knows how we'll be doing on our classic run as we hit Damnation, and whether we cover some of those times as well. I guess the future will tell.
The future will
come back here for Beavis Burrow's goodness next week.
Exactly. All right, well, I guess if that's all from us, I will sign us off. May Khonshu watch over the denizens of the night. Catch you later.
Goodbye, everyone.
Moon Knight and affiliated characters, stories and events are properties of Marvel Characters Incorporated. Materials used and discussed within the podcast are intended for critique and review purposes only under the fair dealing concept of the current Copyright Act. The views, information or opinions expressed during the podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the copyright owners.